unofficial event known as Blarney Blowout happens every year in that town as University of Massachusetts students celebrate ahead of St. Patrick's Day. However, this event is notorious for alcohol-related hospital visits and arrest, and this year was more of the same. Western Mass News reporter Reagan Lockery joins us live in studio with more. Reagan.
Yeah, that's right, Wesley. This year, Amherst police arrested 29 people during the Saturday event, which is actually 11 more than last year. In addition, they also saw several medical calls this year. I spoke with the Amherst fire chief, who tells me although they prepared for months, they still had to call in extra help.
We had staffed up in preparation for it. We had 13 firefighters on duty instead of our normal 8. We had 5 ambulances staffed instead of our normal 3, and we had also hired 3 additional ambulances from other towns. So we had 8 ambulances available.
Despite the additional staff on deck for Saturday's Blarney Blowout, Amherst Fire Chief Lindsey Stromgren tells Western Mass News this year that wasn't quite enough. By almost 10:30 a.m., all 8 of their ambulances were in use and they were forced to call for mutual aid. Less than 30 minutes later, just before 11 a.m., those extra ambulances were also overwhelmed.
It was extreme in terms of the time compression. We didn't have as many ambulance calls this year as we did 2 years ago when we had the problem with the Borgs. It was on par with last year in terms of the number of ambulance calls. What made this year more difficult is it happened very early and in a very short period of time.
Chief Stromgren says they also had concerns about crowd surging, and they were forced to call in a task force that brings in ambulances from across Hampton County for extra coverage. Stromgren says this can also put a strain on emergency responders in surrounding communities.
The ambulances that were then called in mutual aid from other towns, that was pulling from their on-duty crews, as was the task force that we requested. So in that regard, we are pulling ambulances from other communities.
The chief tells Western Mass News there were 30 EMS calls in all of Amherst on Saturday, including Blarney-related activity. 25 of them went to the hospital. Meanwhile, there were 18 EMS calls to the townhouse and Meadow Street area of North Amherst alone. Chief Stromgren says about 17 of those went to Cooley Dickinson Hospital. 9 of the 18 calls were alcohol-related. In addition to the 18 ambulance calls to the townhouses, another 7 patients were evaluated and released by paramedics stationed at the townhouse area. We're told there was also 1 fire call during this time frame. Although several of these calls were primarily alcohol-related, Chief Stromgren says they also saw some other injuries as well.
We did have some traumas. There were some bottles being thrown in the crowd. We had a couple of people hit in the head with bottles. We definitely had 1 person who had a fractured ankle. So there were some injuries. A couple of people that complained of being crushed against the buildings or the fence when the crowd surged.
The University of Massachusetts Amherst tells me any student arrested will be subject to their student conduct process. For more information on that process, head to our website, westernmassnews.com. Reporting live in studio, Reagan Lockery for Western Mass News.